people decide for you. Being an agent of change means you involve yourself in the process to make sure that the change is what you desire. How many people are sitting in this room from so many countries where your government has passed laws you disagree with? Can you remember this as long as you live? An agent of change initiate the changes they want. If you don't be proactive, you're going to be reactive. We ain't supposed to react to life as kingdom citizens. We're supposed to decide life. We're supposed to be proactive. That's why Christ says, go into all the world and disciple the nations. Don't wait for them to disciple you. We're supposed to initiate the change, and therefore we will either be agents or victims. And that is why change is something we must get involved with. To advance and progress and develop, change is necessary. We agree? Yes. Right now, for example, there's a lot of inequality between male and females in our society. Because we came out of a patriarchal culture where the man was the dominant figure in our culture. So women were treated as second-class citizens. We have to change that. So there are a lot of changes that need to take place. But we got to be careful that even though we need to change, there are some things we shouldn't change. I call it the danger of change. Here's the danger. All true change must occur within boundaries. And those boundaries I call natural and spiritual principles or laws. Please write this down, please. This is very important. Teach this to your entire staff. Change is necessary, but all change must be regulated by certain boundaries. And those boundaries are what I call natural and spiritual laws. They're principles that were created in creation by God. For example, God created trees with roots to grow in the soil. That is a principle. God created the trees to absorb sunlight, which is the rays from the sun, the ultraviolet rays. And that ray actually interacts with chemicals in the leaf of the tree that creates what they call chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is plant food. So the plant needs sun. That's a law. For it to create chlorophyll. That's the food for the plant to live. That's life. If you take a plant, a beautiful plant, and put it in a box and seal it, and you come back in 2 weeks, the plant is completely dead. Why? You took away one of the laws. You touched the principle. You can pray for that plant. You can speak in tongues over the plant. You can quote scripture over the plant, and the plant will still die. You could pass a law that all plants will no longer receive light. And the plants will ignore your law. Because no man-made law can cancel natural law. Write that down, please. No man-made law can cancel spiritual law. No man-made law can cancel an eternal principle. So don't live your life on man's laws first. You must first discover what are the natural laws created by the Creator and what are the spiritual laws that He placed in creation. This is why God laughs at man. Because He knows that there's a limitation to your intelligence. All of your PhDs are subject to nature. Never be impressed by a scientist. Never. I went to university. I got 5 degrees. I'm not a dumb man. And I'm never impressed with a scientist. A scientist is a copycat. He studies what's already there, gives it his name, but he can't claim creation of it. All science just does is discover. They don't create, they discover things. You can't discover what was never created. All of our learning is a victim of natural law. And this is why we must know when our boundaries have been met. Write this down, please. Not all change is improvement. Not all change is advancement. Not all change is progress. Not all change is development. How many times have you heard where a country passed a law to create certain economic development in certain areas, and in 6 years they destroyed a certain species? Why? Because they tried to violate natural law with a progressive decision. There's a beach here in the Bahamas, not too far from here. It's called Sanders Beach. Yes, I'm going to talk about it. My wife and I passed there yesterday. Again, our government made a decision, the former government, to create a beach. God didn't create this beach. To create a beach, and they did some stuff. They put some rocks there, and you know, the first couple of months, it looked good. Then nature visited us. Nature's name was Sandy. And Sandy said, let me see how well you've built what God didn't build. And in a matter of 25 minutes, the beach was removed. Millions of dollars was wasted. And today, they are still nervous for the next hurricane. Why? Because you have to be careful when you start shifting things that God didn't create. Natural law can never be canceled by human law. Therefore, any law that a government makes must first line up with two laws. One, natural law. Two, spiritual law. Anytime a government thinks it is smarter than natural law or spiritual law, that government will completely be a failure. Guaranteed. And they will destroy a generation. I put it to you that change can develop or destroy. Say it with me. Change can develop or destroy. Absolutely. So we got to be careful when we talk about change. Now, we want to change, we want to improve things, but we must never forget that change must have some boundaries within which things change. You know, change is like when you go home and you decide that you want to rearrange your house. You don't remove the walls, do you? You change the furniture. You move them around. See, that's change. That's the kind of change God allows you to do. You can reorganize the furniture, but don't touch the walls. Why? The walls are what we call boundaries. And they are built on what? Foundations. And you touch the walls of life, you are canceling the house. Can I submit to you a simple thought? Here's the thought. Remember this. The only key we have, therefore, to regulating and controlling change is we have to plan the change. And the ability to plan is God's gift to us because we can regulate the future. And planning is man's proactive response to the inevitable nature of change. We can plan how to respond to inevitable change. We can actually regulate the change. But we must do it within boundaries. No change is more important or dangerous than uncontrolled change. Unregulated change. Change that is not wise. I want to show you something. This is very important too. The most uncontrollable power on earth is change. That's true. But what is change? Write this down. Change is to deviate from a set of references. Change is what? to deviate from a set reference. In other words, change is to move away from a norm. It is normal for a tree to be put in soil. Is that normal? Yes. So if you decide to take the tree out of the soil because you feel like it, you're violating a norm. Change, therefore, is to transition from a set state. You cannot change unless you know the original state. So you cannot just change because you feel like changing. You got to first decide what is the original stake in the ground. In other words, change means to violate some rules. What are those rules? Let me just caution you. There are some rules you ain't supposed to violate. So we shouldn't just be experimenting with change. We might be touching the rules that shouldn't be moved. The Bahamas has a building code. Every building should be built 10 feet from the boundary. That's a law. Right around the corner here from this church, I was driving home and I saw an apartment building going up. It looks like 6 feet from the boundary. Now I'm trying to figure out which officer did the inspection. Someone's breaking the law here. And by the way, I'm talking about the road boundary now. The thing is right on the road. This is violation. You can't just build anywhere. There are some boundaries. I think when we talk about national change and social change, there has to be somebody in the meeting who knows the boundaries. Y'all help me before I go. There got to be someone to say, excuse me, y'all, excuse me, guys, excuse me, sir, that violates nature. You cannot regulate and legislate my rectum to be an entrance. Go ahead and smile, get over it. In other words, we debating, we voting, but no one stand up saying, wait a minute, there's a natural law here. And I wanted to go in the record that I disagreed with you all. And I go in public with it. Throw me out the party. I ain't going to vote against God's natural law. There comes a point where collective responsibility has to be violated. Because your first responsibility is not to a group of men. It's to God only. I want to die in my casket with my conscience clean. I did what pleased God to the best of my ability.